My name is Kimberly Richard. I'm 52 years old. For most of my life, I thought I understood love. I believed that when two people promised forever, it meant something unbreakable, not just words whispered in the glow of candlelight. My wife Julia and I had built 12 years of laughter, quiet mornings, and unspoken trust. Every habit of hers, the way she'd hum while making coffee, the tiny dance she'd do when the dog barked, had become the rhythm of my days. We were a team or so, I thought. The first fracture came so quietly that I almost missed it. Conversations became shorter, her laughter quieter. She'd scroll endlessly through her phone at dinner, the screen's glow replacing the warmth of her smile. I'd ask how her day went. She'd mumble, fine eyes still glued to the digital world that had started swallowing her. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I'd gotten too comfortable, too predictable. I planned date nights, tried to recreate the spark we once had. We went out for Italian one Friday, the same restaurant where I proposed years ago. She wore a dress I'd always loved. But even as we sat across from each other, I could feel her mind wandering to someone or something I couldn't see. The first real red flag came a few weeks later. Her phone buzzed at midnight. She reached for it before the sound had even finished turning away from me in the dark. Work stuff, she whispered. But she didn't work late. She never did. Then came the smell. Faint cologne that wasn't mine, clinging to her coat when she came home from errands. I tried to tell myself it was nothing that paranoia destroys faster than betrayal ever could, but deep down my gut had already drawn the lines of a truth I didn't want to face. One evening, I came home early to surprise her. The house was spotless, candles lit, but she wasn't there. I called, and she picked up with a startled tone. "Oh, Kimberly, I'm still at the office," she said. But I could hear background noise, laughter, music, glasses clinking. Something inside me went still. That Friday, I decided to test the truth. I told her I had late meetings, then drove to her office parking just across the street. Hours passed. Her message pinged at 8:17 p.m. "Working late, don't wait up." I stayed in the car engine, off eyes, on the glass doors. At 8:46, Julia walked out radiant in a soft red blouse, hair loose, smile easy. But she wasn't alone. A man followed behind her, tall, confident, wearing a familiar jacket. My stomach twisted as they got into his car together. I didn't know where they were going, but I knew I had to follow. The city lights blurred as I trailed them through the streets, pulse drumming in my throat. Every stoplight felt like a countdown. They finally pulled up to a bar on the edge of downtown. A cozy place, dim lights, soft music, couples laughing inside. I parked half a block away, heart hammering, and watched through the window. Julia sat at a corner table, face glowing in the amber light. The man leaned closer, whispering something that made her laugh, and when she reached across the table to touch his hand, I felt the ground vanish beneath me. I stepped closer, trying to see his face, and that's when the world froze. Because the man sitting across from my wife, the one she was smiling at like a woman in love, was my younger half-brother Ryan. For a few seconds I couldn't breathe. My own blood, my own brother. Julia leaned closer, brushing her fingers along his arm. Ryan laughed that same careless laugh I used to hear when we were kids, and he'd gotten away with trouble. The sight of them together, her soft eyes, his smirk twisted inside me, until I felt physically sick. My hands shook so badly I had to grip the steering wheel just to stay upright. I didn't confront them. I couldn't. Not then. I drove away before they could see me, headlights streaking through tears I didn't even realize had fallen. That night I didn't sleep. The air in our bedroom felt poisoned. She slipped into bed past midnight, reeking faintly of whiskey and his cologne. I lay there, eyes open in the dark, pretending to breathe evenly as the truth pressed against my chest like a weight. Somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., I whispered to myself, "She's cheating on me with my own brother." And though the words sounded unreal, the ache in my chest told me it was only the beginning. I didn't close my eyes once that night. The ceiling above me felt like a blank screen, looping every memory of Julia, her laugh, her touch, the vows she made, all corrupted now, replaying like a cruel joke. Every second I tried to breathe, the image of her hand on Ryan's arm burned deeper into my mind. By morning I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was hollow. The silence in our house was deafening, almost mocking. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at 2 untouched cups of coffee, the one I'd made for her, still steaming faintly. When she walked in, hair still damp from the shower, I noticed she didn't meet my eyes. Her voice was light rehearsed. "Morning, honey. You're up early." I studied her. Her robe was loosely tied, her smile too careful. I managed to nod, though my throat had dried up completely. She moved around the kitchen like nothing was wrong, humming, slicing fruit, scrolling her phone in between. I wanted to scream, "How can you be this calm after betraying me with my own brother?" But instead, I murmured, "I might head to the office early today." "Sure," she said absently, not even looking up. I took my phone, wallet, and keys, but what I really took was her phone. I slipped it into my pocket the second she turned toward the fridge. In the car, I locked the doors and powered it on. No passcode, careless. Maybe she thought I'd never look. The truth hit me in waves. Texts, calls, late-night photos. Some were innocent enough to fool anyone else, but not me. There were messages like, "Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again, even if it has to be a secret. Don't let Kimberly suspect anything." Each one carved another piece off whatever soul I had left. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel the need to. It was like my emotions had been drained out and replaced with something colder, a strange clarity. I took screenshots of everything, forwarding them to my own phone. The evidence, my proof, my ammunition. When I drove to my mother's house later that morning, my hands were steady. But my heart, it felt like shattered glass grinding inside me. Mom opened the door with her usual warmth, still in her morning robe, but her smile faltered the moment she saw my face. "Kimberly." "What happened?" she asked softly. I handed her my phone. "Look." She scrolled through the messages, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief, then fury. Her lips trembled. "Julia and Ryan." "Your brother," I nodded. "I saw them last night." For a moment, my mother didn't move. Then she sat down heavily on the couch, covering her mouth with her hands. "Ryan always envied you," she whispered. "Ever since your father left, he's carried that resentment. But this Kimberly, this is unforgivable." I could see the pain in her eyes, not just for me, but for what Ryan had done to her as a mother. The betrayal had split us both. She shook her head, voice trembling with suppressed rage. "She's no better. That woman stood in this house, called me Mom, and smiled like family." Her voice broke, but then hardened. "You can't let them walk away from this. They need to be exposed, both of them." That word exposed hit something inside me. I looked at her, realizing she wasn't just angry. She wanted justice. "Then help me," I said quietly. And she did. We sat for hours plotting what to do. The idea started small, confronting them privately. But the longer we talked, the more it evolved into something sharper, more public. We would invite the family over for dinner, Ryan and Julia included. And in front of everyone, we'd show them what betrayal looked like when the mask finally slipped. Mom was uncharacteristically calm. She poured tea, her hand only trembling once. "Kimberly," she said finally, "when you do this, make sure you look them both in the eye. Let them see what they destroyed." That night I went home with the plan echoing in my head. Julia was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll through her phone, pretending not to notice how my footsteps sounded heavier than usual. "Everything okay?" she asked casually. "Perfect," I said, and smiled. Inside, I was already picturing the dinner table. The lights dim, the guests quiet, the projector flickering on, and two faces, hers and Ryan's, caught forever in the glow of their own deceit. This weekend, everyone will know what they did. The house looked perfect that night, too perfect maybe. Every plate was aligned, every candle evenly spaced, every smile rehearsed. It was the kind of evening that pretended to be normal, except it wasn't. I'd spent the entire day setting up, cooking, cleaning, pretending everything between Julia and me was fine. She had no idea what was coming. When she kissed my cheek before the guests arrived, it felt like being touched by a stranger. One by one, our family filtered in: my stepfather Henry, a few cousins, and finally my mother. And right on cue, Julia walked in from the kitchen with my half-brother Ryan beside her. He grinned, that effortless grin of his, the same one that had always gotten him out of trouble. "Good to see you, bro," he said, clapping my shoulder like we were still family. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "Good to see you too." Mom's eyes flicked between us, her jaw tight, but she said nothing. She'd promised to let me lead this. Dinner began like a performance. Laughter, polite conversation. Julia was radiant, playing the role of devoted wife, flawlessly pouring drinks, complimenting Mom's hair, even brushing crumbs from my sleeve, as if she still cared. Ryan joined in, joking with my cousins, pouring himself another glass of wine. I almost admired their confidence. Almost. As dessert plates were cleared, I caught my mother's eye across the table. She gave a small nod, the signal. My pulse began to drum, steady and deliberate. I stood up, raising my glass slightly to get everyone's attention. Before we end the night, I said, voice calm but firm, there's something I want to share, something I think everyone should see. The room quieted, chairs creaked. Julia tilted her head, confusion softening her features. Kimberly. Mom stood beside me, carrying the small projector she'd brought from her house. You'll all want to pay attention, she said quietly. Ryan chuckled nervously. What's this, a slideshow? Something like that, I replied, connecting my phone. The projector flickered to life, a beam of cold light cutting across the room. The first image appeared. Julia froze. It was a photo of her and Ryan in that same downtown bar, their hands intertwined, faces too close to mistake for innocence. Gasps rippled around the table. My cousins exchanged looks. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." Julia's lips parted, but no sound came. Ryan blinked rapidly, the color draining from his face. I clicked to the next image, another bar. Different night, same sin. Then came the texts. The words projected across the wall, their font black and merciless. Can't stop thinking about you. He'll never find out. You make me feel alive again. The room went silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Julia, I said. Finally, my voice steady. I wanted everyone here to see the truth. I didn't want whispers or doubts. This, I gestured toward the wall, is what my marriage really looks like. Her hand shot out trembling. Kimberly, please. We can talk about this privately. No, I interrupted. You made it public when you brought him into my life. Mom stood behind me, voice sharp as glass. How could you, Julia? How could either of you? Ryan finally found his voice. Kimberly, man, listen, it's not what it looks like. Don't you dare, I snapped, my control finally slipping. You called me last month to ask for a loan. I helped you because I thought you were trying to get your life together. And the whole time you were sleeping with my wife. Ryan's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. Julia grabbed his arm, whispering something that sounded like, don't say anything. But it was too late. Every pair of eyes around that table was locked on them, not with curiosity, but disgust. My stepfather's voice broke the silence. You've disgraced this family. Julia started crying, tears streaking down her face, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief. Just the echo of the man I used to be fading in the noise. I didn't bring you all here to destroy anyone, I said, forcing my voice to calm again. I brought you here because lies only have power when they stay hidden. And I'm done living in the dark. I turned toward Julia. I'll file the papers next week. You're free to be with him if that's what you really want. Her shoulders shook as she whispered, Kimberly, please, I made a mistake. But I was already walking away. Mom followed me, touching my arm lightly. The room behind us erupted voices, overlapping chairs, scraping Ryan, shouting something I didn't care to hear. At the door, I looked back once. Julia was still standing under the projector light, the evidence of her betrayal glowing across her face like a scar she couldn't wipe away. For a moment, I thought she might look remorseful. Instead, I saw something else, a flicker of defiance. The kind that said, this isn't over. And maybe deep down, I already knew she was right. I thought it was finally over. I was wrong. A month after that dinner, the house was silent again. Too silent. The kind of silence that used to mean peace, but now felt like aftermath. Julia had moved out the day after the confrontation. She didn't fight me on the divorce. Maybe she was too humiliated. Maybe she just wanted to run back to the man who'd ruined everything between us. Either way, I let her go. The first few weeks were a blur of paperwork, empty bottles, and long drives with no destination. I'd wake up to sunlight pouring through the curtains and feel that ache, the one that whispers something's missing. But little by little, the ache dulled. I started going back to the gym, spending evenings with my mother, fixing up the backyard. For a while, I thought healing might actually be possible. Then one ordinary evening, Mom called. Kimberly, don't panic, okay? Her voice had that careful edge people use before they tell you something terrible. What is it? She hesitated. It's about Julia and Ryan. My stomach tightened. What about them? There was a pause, then a soft sigh. Check Facebook. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But curiosity, or maybe masochism, made me open my phone and search Julia's name. The photo stopped my breath cold. Julia and Ryan standing in a garden, arms wrapped around each other. She was wearing a cream-colored dress. He was in a suit, both smiling like they'd never done anything wrong. And the caption read, "He's my forever now." Underneath, a single hashtag glared back at me. Had I engaged? For a long minute, I just stared at the screen, not even blinking. Then I laughed, that kind of hollow laugh that comes when disbelief tips into madness. Mom was still on the line. Kimberly. They're engaged, I said, voice flat. They're really doing it. On the other end, I heard her mutter something under her breath, something that sounded like God help them both. I could picture her shaking with anger, probably pacing the living room. But me, I just sat there staring at the screen until the image burned itself into my brain. Later that night, I got another call, this time from my stepfather, Henry. His voice was grim. Son Ryan just called me. He wanted to tell me personally. I hung up on him. Good, I said quietly. But Henry continued. He said they're inviting the whole family, including you. That made me pause. Excuse me. He said, Julia wanted you there, to show there's no bad blood. The silence stretched between us. Then I laughed again, but it came out colder this time. They want me to bless their wedding. Henry didn't respond immediately. Kimberly, I know this is hard. Don't go. Just don't let them drag you back into their mess. But that's the thing about betrayal. It plants something inside you, a seed. And the more you try to ignore it, the deeper it grows. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking about Julia's smug smile, about Ryan's casual betrayal, about how they probably told themselves I'd moved on, that I was harmless now. The more I thought, the less I hurt. And the less I hurt, the more something else took its place. A calm, deliberate anger. By morning, I knew what I was going to do. I called Mom. She sounded tired, but curious. What now, Kimberly? I'm going, I said, to their engagement party. Kimberly, not alone, I added. She went quiet. What do you mean, not alone? I smiled for the first time in weeks, a slow, dangerous smile that even I didn't recognize. I'm taking someone with me, I said. Someone they won't expect. Mom's voice lowered, almost wary. Who? But I didn't answer right away. I just looked out the window at the gray sky, watching the first raindrops fall against the glass. They want me there to celebrate their happiness, I murmured. Fine. I'll bring a reminder of everything they tried to bury. For the first time since the night I caught them, the ache in my chest loosened. Not because I'd forgiven them, but because I finally knew how this story would end. If they wanted a show, they'd get one. I'd make sure of it. When betrayal stops hurting, that's when it gets dangerous. Because what's left isn't pain, it's focus. I spent the next few days gathering details like a detective with a personal vendetta. Julia's engagement photos were spreading across social media, each more nauseating than the last. White flowers, gold rings, perfect smiles. The caption under one read, "Life gives second chances to those who deserve them." The irony made me laugh so hard I nearly broke the glass in my hand. I wasn't sure at first what form my revenge would take. I wasn't interested in public humiliation. I'd already done that. What I wanted now was something quieter, something that would crawl under their skin and stay there. Then, while scrolling through Ryan's tagged photos, I saw a familiar face, Emily Rhodes. The name hit me like an echo. Years ago, she'd been Ryan's fiancée. He'd left her suddenly without warning after meeting Julia at one of my family gatherings. Emily had disappeared from our lives, humiliated and heartbroken. And there she was, single, stunning, running a design studio downtown. Her latest post read, "Healing means remembering who you were before they broke you." I stared at her picture for a long time, and that's when the idea started forming. That night, I told my mother about it. She crossed her arms. Kimberly, what exactly are you planning? I'm going to that engagement party, I said, with Emily. Mom blinked. Ryan's ex? I nodded. Kimberly, that's extreme. So was sleeping with your brother's wife, I said calmly. This isn't revenge, Mom. It's justice with better lighting. She sighed and rubbed her temples. Henry's not going to like this. He'll say you're stooping to their level. Maybe I am, I admitted. But they took everything I built. I want them to feel even a fraction of what they made me feel. She studied me for a long moment, then her expression softened. Just promise me one thing. Don't lose yourself in it. I didn't answer because I wasn't sure who myself even was anymore. The next day I found Emily's number through an old contact and called her. She hesitated when I introduced myself. Kimberly, Richard Ryan's brother. Yeah, I said. And I know this might sound strange, but I think we could help each other. There was silence, then a cautious go on. I told her everything, the affair, the exposure, the upcoming engagement party. At first she just listened. Then slowly I heard the tremor in her voice harden into something sharper. So she said, finally, you want me to go with you, to their celebration. I do, as my date. Why? I smiled. Because they need to see the ghosts they thought were buried. For a few seconds she said nothing. Then a soft laugh came through the line, low, dark, and a little dangerous. Send me the date and the dress code, she said. I'll be there. When I hung up, I felt the first real spark of control since this nightmare began. That evening, I called Henry to warn him. He listened silently, then sighed. Kimberly, don't do this. Revenge is like quicksand. You think you're standing tall, but it drags you under. Then I'll make sure I walk on stone, I replied. He exhaled sharply. I can't stop you, but I hope you know what you're walking into. I do, I said. And I'll walk out smiling. That night, as I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the man staring back. The sadness in his eyes had burned away, leaving something colder, something steady. The reflection whispered, "You've been their victim long enough." I leaned closer and said aloud, "Let's remind them who they betrayed." The date was set, the plan in motion. And somewhere in the city, Julia and Ryan were probably rehearsing their vows, still believing they'd won. They had no idea that the guest list included the one person neither of them wanted to see. Emily Rhodes, the woman Ryan left for Julia, was coming to their engagement, on my arm. And that would be the first moment they realized I wasn't the man they buried. The day of the engagement party arrived, wrapped in polished perfection, white roses, champagne flutes, the illusion of happily ever after. Everything about the event screamed picture perfect. Except it wasn't. I pulled up outside the garden venue, the kind Julia used to daydream about. Lanterns strung between oak trees, violins playing soft classical music, guests in pastel shades, the kind of fairy tale she'd stolen and rewritten with my brother. The valet opened my door, and when I stepped out, heads started to turn. Not because of me, but because of the woman beside me. Emily Rhodes. She looked breathtaking. A fitted black dress hair, swept elegantly to one side, confidence radiating off her like heat from a flame. There was nothing vengeful in her expression, just calm power, the kind of presence that made people pause mid-sentence. "Ready?" I asked quietly as we walked toward the crowd. Emily smiled faintly. "I've been ready for 3 years." As we entered, the chatter faltered. You could feel the confusion ripple through the air like static. Julia's friends recognized me first. Their smiles froze, eyes darting between me and my date. And then Ryan turned. For a moment, the world went utterly still. His face lost all color. The wineglass in his hand tilted slightly trembling. Emily gave a polite smile, the kind you give someone you've forgiven, just enough to haunt them. "Hello, Ryan," she said sweetly. "Congratulations." Julia appeared at his side, radiant in ivory silk. The instant she saw Emily, her jaw slackened. Her hand tightened around Ryan's arm. "Kimberly," she managed, forcing a brittle laugh. "I didn't expect you to actually come." "I didn't either," I said evenly. "But your invitation was very persuasive. You said it would mean a lot if I attended." I gestured to Emily. "So I brought a guest. You remember Emily, don't you?" Julia's face paled, her lips parted, but no words came. Ryan swallowed hard. "Kimberly, this is—" "What's wrong, brother?" I interrupted softly. "You look like you've seen a ghost." The surrounding guests were whispering now. Some recognized Emily, others didn't, but they all sensed it, the tension beneath the polished surface. Julia tried to recover her fake smile, trembling. "Well, I suppose the more the merrier. Let's enjoy the night." "Absolutely," I said. "I'm here to celebrate love." Emily's laugh was quiet, but sharp enough to cut glass. As the evening went on, I watched them crumble bit by bit. Julia couldn't keep her composure. Her eyes kept darting toward us. Her laughter forced movements stiff. Ryan tried to act casual, but every time Emily's name slipped into a conversation, his jaw tightened. At one point, while Julia was greeting guests, Ryan cornered me near the bar. His voice dropped low. "What the hell are you doing, Kimberly?" I took a sip of my drink, enjoying the view. "This isn't funny." "No," I cut him off. "What's funny is watching the two of you play house like the world forgot what you did." He stepped closer. "You brought her just to humiliate us." I looked him dead in the eye. "No, Ryan. I brought her to remind you that betrayal always circles back. You left her for my wife, and she left me for you. Seems poetic, doesn't it?" He stared at me, chest rising and falling, trying to hold back his temper. "You've changed." "I had to," I said quietly. "You burned the old me down." Just then, Julia joined us, forcing a brittle smile. "Is everything okay here?" Emily turned to her with impeccable grace. "Perfect," she said sweetly. "You look glowing, Julia. Must be the guilt." Julia flinched. "Excuse me." Emily's smile didn't falter. "Nothing. You know, it's strange standing here watching the two of you celebrate. I can almost see the moment you both decided my heart didn't matter." Gasps rippled around us. People were listening now. Julia tried to speak, but her voice broke. "This isn't the place for—" "Oh, I think it's exactly the place," Emily said, her tone icy calm. "You wanted an audience, didn't you? For your happiness." The music faltered. A few guests exchanged uneasy glances. Ryan's face had gone crimson. "Emily, stop." "No," she said, eyes flashing. "You stop pretending you're the victim. You cheated your way into her life, and she cheated her way out of his." She pointed at me. "And now you're standing here like you've built something pure out of all that filth." Julia's hand shook. "You need to leave." Emily laughed softly. "Funny, that's exactly what you said to me the night you stole him." The entire garden was silent, except for the sound of the fountain trickling nearby. And in that heavy silence, Julia's perfect composure finally cracked. Her voice came out as a hiss. "You think you're clever, Kimberly? You think this makes you look noble?" I met her gaze evenly. "No, Julia. I just wanted you both to know what it feels like to be haunted by your past while everyone's watching." Then I turned to Emily. "Shall we?" She nodded, linking her arm through mine. As we walked out, I heard Julia's voice rise. Shrill, desperate arguing with Ryan as guests whispered and scattered. Someone's camera flashed. Another dropped a glass. The fairy tale had just imploded in front of everyone. At the exit, Mom was waiting near the gate. She hadn't said she'd come, but of course she did. Her eyes met mine, part pride, part sorrow. "You did what you came to do," she said softly. "Now let it end." I nodded. It ended the moment she saw us walk in. Behind us, the chaos swelled, Julia shouting Ryan's name, Ryan cursing guests, murmuring. But for the first time in a long time, the noise didn't belong to me. I walked away from that garden without looking back. For once, they were the ones left standing in the ruins. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt free. It's strange how quiet life feels after the storm. No more phone calls, no angry messages, no restless pacing in the dark. Just stillness, heavy, unfamiliar, almost comforting. A week after the engagement disaster, I heard from my stepfather, Henry. His voice was low calm in that way people sound when they've run out of anger. "They called off the wedding," he said simply. I didn't answer right away. He sighed. Julia left Ryan, packed her things the next day. Apparently she found out he'd been messaging another woman even while they were planning the ceremony. The irony almost made me smile. Almost. "Guess karma doesn't take its time," I murmured. Kimberly Henry continued. "I won't pretend I approve of what you did, but I understand it. Ryan's staying with a friend. Julia's back at her mother's place. The family's in shambles." "Maybe that's the price of truth," I said quietly. There was a pause, then softer. "You've made your point. Now stop fighting ghosts." That sentence lingered long after the call ended. Stop fighting ghosts. For days, I walked around my empty house replaying the chaos from that night. The flash of cameras, the crack in Julia's voice, Emily's fierce calm. And every time the same thought came back, it was over. Still, endings never arrive as clean as we wish they would. A few days later, Julia showed up. She didn't call. She just appeared at my door. Hair disheveled, eyes rimmed red. The woman who once held herself like royalty now looked small. "Kimberly," she whispered, "please, can we talk?" I stood in the doorway, torn between curiosity and the old ache that still flickered when I looked at her. "You have 5 minutes." She stepped inside, her perfume faint, her voice trembling. "I didn't know it would end like this. I thought Ryan was different." "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't pretend you didn't choose him over me." "You made your bed, Julia. I just turned on the light." Her lip quivered. "I didn't come for forgiveness. I came to say, I regret everything." The sincerity in her voice might have reached me months ago, but now it was just another echo. I nodded once. "Good. Then use that regret to never hurt someone the way you hurt me." She opened her mouth to say more, but I closed the door gently before she could. Not out of cruelty, out of mercy, for both of us. After that, I didn't hear from her again. As for Ryan, he sent a text. Just one. "You win." I stared at it for a while, then deleted it without replying. Because this wasn't a game. There were no winners here, only survivors. A month later, Mom invited me over for dinner. She cooked my favorite meal the way she used to when I was a kid. Between bites, she studied me quietly. "You look lighter," she said, like someone finally put the fire out. "Maybe because I stopped feeding it," I said with a faint smile. She nodded approvingly. "Good. That's all I wanted, for you to remember who you were before they broke you." I glanced at her, a flicker of amusement in my tone. "You sound like Emily." At her name, Mom's brows lifted slightly. "You've been talking to her." "Here and there," I said. "She checks in sometimes. Says she's working on a new art exhibit. Healing through creation." Mom smiled knowingly. "And what about you?" I took a long breath, letting the silence fill in the spaces where pain used to live. "I think I'm doing the same healing by rebuilding." That night when I got home, I scrolled through my phone and saw a new message from Emily. "Closure isn't revenge, Kimberly. It's peace. You finally earned it." I typed back, "Peace feels strange." She replied almost instantly, "You'll get used to it." I set the phone down and looked around my quiet house. For the first time, it didn't feel empty. It just felt mine again. Outside, the wind brushed through the trees, carrying away the last remnants of that long, bitter chapter. I thought about everything: Julia's betrayal, Ryan's arrogance, the chaos I'd unleashed, and yet I didn't regret a thing. Sometimes you need to burn the past down to see who you really are in the light that follows. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I whispered one final truth to myself. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting back, it's about finally feeling whole again.